Importing personnel records. One of the newest features of SalamanderLive is the ability to import personnel records directly into your personnel database. This video tutorial will walk you through the requirements and basic steps for performing a successful import. Before we get into the how-tos, let's first look at the permission requirement a user must have in order to perform an import in SalamanderLive. A user must have a security role which permits the creation of personnel records. Without this permission, the import feature will not be visible. There are 4 security roles which encompass this permission: Administrator, Administrator No Security, Org Admin No Delete, and Resource Data Entry. Having accurate data is the most important part of the import process. The rule is good data in equals good data out. Here are some basic guidelines and best practices for how to prepare your data for the best possible output. When preparing the source file for import, there are 4 elements to consider. The first is the file type. The SalamanderLive Personnel Import feature supports CSV and text files only. The second is field specifications. There are 40 fields available and each have specific conditions that must be met. Thirdly, there are 4 required data fields that must be included in every import: first name, last name, personnel ID, and organization. Lastly, the data must be organized in such a way that the import wizard can divide the contents into records, rows, and fields, column. Column delimiters can include commas, tabs, or semicolons. String delimiters can include a single or double quote. For the best possible import output, here are some best practices to consider. Avoid single or double quotes, commas, and semicolons within fields, except as delimiters. Create field headers as they are easier to map to existing SalamanderLive fields than raw data. Review data before performing the import to be sure that the data within the columns represents the headers. For example, if somehow the column for a phone number shows text instead of numbers, the import wizard will discard that information. Utilize the provided personnel import template to mitigate field mapping errors. And lastly, have no more than 3,000 records per import. Now that we've covered the preparation and requirements for an import, let's dive into how to perform the import. From the main page of your SalamanderLive user account, click the Personnel List tab. From here, click the More drop-down menu. As a reminder, only users with the correct permission will see the additional menu option. From the menu, click Import Personnel. The File Upload window will open. Search and select the source file to be imported. Again, only CSV or text files are valid for importing. For this example, we'll select our sample import file. Next, select whether the source file has column headers, what the starting data row number is, and the correct delimiters for the file. Below this, you'll see a partial preview of how these selections apply to the data. Since the data has column headers, we will select My Data Has Headers. You will notice that the starting data row number will automatically change to 2. Since the data does start in row number 2, we will leave that as is. Next, select your column and string delimiters. For this example, the fields are separated by commas and there is no string delimiters, so the data appears to be accurately separated. Once you've made your selections, click Next. The next step is to map all the fields from the imported data to the Salamander fields. We'll zoom out so all the fields are visible. When headers are part of the data, the import wizard will guess at the field mapping. It will choose Do Not Import if it either can't understand the field or if the field has already been mapped, since fields can only be mapped once. Review the mapping to ensure all fields are properly matched to the correct Salamander field. If the fields are not properly matched, the data will not be imported correctly. Please see Appendix 1 of the Personnel Import User Guide for a complete list of fields, field descriptions, lengths, and suggested content. Let's take a look at this example. The import data contains a business phone field, which after reviewing Appendix 1 of the user guide, we know that it should be mapped to work phone. To change it, click in the field next to business phone. Scroll through the list and select the correct field it should be mapped to. In this case, it should be work phone. The business phone data is now properly mapped to the correct Salamander field. When you're finished reviewing the mapping, click Next. The goal of the import is to get the import wizard to import all the data the first time out, if possible. If you see the Resolve Issue screen, it usually means the import operation failed. The Resolve Issue screen will list the issues as well as which record caused the issue. If you're dealing with only a few records, discerning the missing value and entering it manually after the import might not be a big deal. However, if the import skips hundreds of values, that can be a problem. Let's take a look at the first issue in this example, missing organization. In order to successfully import the records, an organization must be specified. If you recall from earlier, an organization name is a required data field. To specify the organization, type the name in the field and a matching list will appear. Select the organization from the list. Once an organization is selected, the issue will be removed from the issues list. The next two issues list there are 3 records missing a first name and 3 records missing a last name. To fix missing information issues, go to the source file and enter in the missing data. If these issues are not fixed, the import wizard will skip importing those records. A personal ID is also missing from 3 records. The import wizard will generate a unique ID for these records in order for them to import. If custom IDs are preferred, enter them in the source file. Lastly, 10 records contain fields with invalid content. This means that the data does not match the expected data for the import. In this case, the records will be imported, but the fields with the invalid data will be ignored. If changes were made to the source file to fix the listed issues, click Cancel and restart the import process. If you prefer to manually fix the issues after the import, select Fix and Import to import the records. For this example, we'll click Fix and Import. Once the import is finished, the review page will appear. The review page will state how many records were added as well as how many records were skipped. To see a comprehensive detail log of skipped records and any data modifications, click Download Log File. Click OK to open the file. A CSV file will download. It will contain a list of all fields and records that were either modified or skipped. This log can then be used as a guide to manually fix records in SalamanderLive. Going back to the review page, select to either perform another import or close out of the import wizard. We'll click Done to close it out. You'll be brought back to the Personnel List page in SalamanderLive. This concludes this tutorial on the requirements and how-tos for performing a personnel import.